Oh, hey. Hello. I'm Bruce, your host at Klepp's Garage. Welcome back. Today, I wasn't going to film this, but, well, somebody might be interested. I'm putting together a Model T engine. Let's see here. Long story short, I tore it apart. Now I'm putting it back together. Anyhow, show you guys, this is called a Hogs Head. This is off Model T. This is the pedal assembly, and it's supposed to look somewhat like a hog. His little snout's up here. Anyhow, I'm going to show you how to put one of these back on this. No, wait, that's my Jeep motor that goes in my Jeep. We'll talk about that later. I just finished that one up too. No, we're going to work on this today. This is a 1913. The way you can tell it's a 1913, it's got a casting date right here, 9/6 of 2013. Yeah, 1913. Well, it's brand new. Anyhow, yeah. So today I put this pan back on the engine, and basically all I did was suspend the motor and put the pan up from the bottom. Now I've got to put the cover on back here. So this is the actually the transmission, the flywheel, the magneto, the magnets, and yeah. We're going to attempt to put that back on today. Won't this be fun? So come along. Let's see how this goes. All right. So you're thinking, well, Mr. Bruce, what does that motor go into? Well, obviously it goes into a Model T Ford. However, that motor, all I started with was just a block and some parts. Took it up to my engine builder years ago, about 6 or 7. Had it built and brought it down here. Then I was having another motor rebuilt for my 1911 Model T Ford. I'll show you a picture of that. Anyhow, that motor became a 2-piece crank motor, and I took it out and took it up to have him rebuild it. This is where the long story comes in. The engine pan that was on my 11 was the wrong one, and I had one laying around that I put on this motor you just seen. Realized that it was the pan that belonged on my 11T, and decided I needed to switch the pans, because there's like 7, 8, 10, 12 rivets holding the ears on to the motor pan to the frame, and it's worth more than the pan that this one has on a 13. Only has 3 or 4 or whatever. There's less rivets. Anyhow, so I thought, well, I'll have it original. So, well, what to do with this motor? Well, I've been gathering parts, and you've seen this before. This is hanging on the wall. There is a frame of a Model T. That is probably a 12-13 frame, but I'm going to build a 1912, what's known as a pie wagon or a C-cab delivery wagon. It's going to be this thing right here. So I've just been collecting parts. So I have the motor all rebuilt. I have the frame. I have the hood former. I've got front spring hanger, front spring, tapered leaf spring, some of the bolts. I have a front axle, I have a rear axle, and these bodies are made up in, I think, Connecticut. You're going to have one of these built. Wood frame with a metal sides. I'm going to have to save my 20s, a lot of 20s, to get one of these. But Ford only made this particular vehicle in 1 year, 1912. That was the only year it was a delivery truck, the C-cab. This is called a C-cab because it looks like the letter C. The reason it's like this, I found out building my chuck wagon, is so your arm doesn't hit the post that would have been right here. So when you drive this thing, you have room for your arm. That's why it's called a C-cab, and it has a raised roof. Now, a lot of delivery wagons after that was just a straight roof, like this. But I like this, and the Mike Sells Potato Chip factory was in Dayton, Ohio, which is close to my hometown. And I thought, well, I'm just going to build one up to look like that. So now you know about the motor. Let's go put it together. All right, let's discuss a little bit about this pan. So, I was talking about all those rivets, So these are the ears that hold the pan on. And there's 1, 2, 3 rivets right there that hold this on. So that'd be like from 1912, 13, all the way up. So there's the 3 rivets. And I think this is even brazed on. So this is part of the pan. This is what goes up and holds the engine to the frame. And on the early motors, this has a real narrow, they call this a needle nose pan. See how narrow this is? And this actually was sort of a weak link, but you know, they lasted 100 years, so it wasn't that weak. And it has about a 2-inch diameter pulley to run your fan. Well, let's go look at a 27 motor I got sitting over here. So this is a 27 motor. It's the same basic pan, although this one, the Hogs Head, has a starter hole added to it, so you can put a starter on. This came out in 1919 when Ford came out with the electric starter. So, and it has a Bendix cover back here. And it still has these same frame horns, or whatever you want to call these things. There's still 3 rivets holding them on. So that didn't change throughout production line. What did change was the front of the pan. So we'll see if you can see this here. Should be able to. So the pan got a lot wider in here. Got rid of that needle nose thing. Stiffened that up, and then they went to a bigger pulley to run the fan. So they actually sped up the fan. And so that was the big differences between the two. 1911 was still an early motor. The motor I have for 1911 is what's called an enclosed valve motor. It was the new design. And we'll go into that when I put that motor into the car. While I'm lamenting about engines, a little update on the Lincoln here. This is March 1st, by the way, 2025. I now have the oil pan back on this thing. Isn't that pretty? It's a little too pretty, but I didn't want to let it rust out again. I did have it, ended up getting it TIG welded on the inside and cleaned out all up. But so this project's coming along. I got to run up to Michigan here, like next week or the week after, and get my intake manifold so I can try to get this bad boy running. Let's go back over to this engine. Where to start? Well, let's see. I guess first thing to do is make sure this surface area is clean and the other surface area on the Hogs Head is clean. And then get you a new set of gaskets. So there's 2 gaskets that are identically the same for the back end. So this one goes on this side, and the other one goes on the other side. And then there's a piece of felt that goes in here. I'm going to reuse this that's in here. And actually, I'm going to have to get another piece. There's nothing in there. So I'm going to have to put another piece of felt in there. I think I got a piece laying around here. We'll see if we can find some. Anyhow. But first, I need to trim this piece of gasket because my motor gasket is sticking out to there. So I either need to cut this one off or trim this one. What to do, decisions. I'll see if I can trim this one here up first. Let's get a sharp knife. Alright, I got my trusty sharp knife here. See if I can do anything with this. Don't want to get your fingers in there. Cut them right off. Must have siliconed that down already. That stuff dries pretty quick. There, got that piece off. Now, there's still a little piece there. Close enough. Still gonna trim a little this edge. I'll get a pair of scissors. A pair of scissors ought to do the trick. Probably want to watch it. You don't throw your trimmings down in there. I heard this one hit the floor, so I think I'm good. There, that'll work. Now let's go get that piece of felt to lay in here. So I'll silicone this. I know they didn't do that back in the day, but this sure helps them from leaking. Put this on, and we'll put some silicone on the Hogs Head. Drop that down on here. There's one side. I'll do that to the other side. So you can buy this tool, and I've made this one, but what this does is hold these bands together so you can put the Hogs Head in it. Otherwise, they're going to be over here, over there, everywhere else. But there's also another tool they made that a friend of mine just actually bought, that when you put the Hogs Head on there, it collapses these springs, so the springs fit down in here. And I'll show you how that works here in a minute. But I think I'm going to phone a friend and see if I can borrow his tool. That would make this job a little bit easier. All right, so I phoned a friend, Dan. He's a tool guy, and he brought over some tools, and I finally figured out what the heck these things are for. So in order to put the Hogs Head on, we already showed you, you might as well come over here. We put this little tool on here to hold all the bands in one place. Otherwise, if you take this tool off, it'll spring out like that. So we need to hold these in place. And this little tool here does this, and I borrowed this off of Dan too, because the one I had is the one I made, and it seems to be not as good as this one, so we're going to use this one because we've already test fit this. I'll bring you back over here, and then, so Dan come down one day, and he showed me this thing, and he says, "What is this thing?" I said, "Well, I think it's got to do with compressing the bands," but then after I got looking at everything, it actually is used to compress the springs. So this one is made by the Star Tool Company out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And I think we figured out that it's got place for 3 springs here. So we're gonna put this in here. This is actually a spring collapser. So we're gonna mount this like that. And what this does is it holds the springs together so we can drop this Hogs Head down over those bands, which we're gonna attempt to do here next. Won't this be fun? All right, so to spare you, I've already put the gaskets on, put my black silicone goop on there, put the piece of felt in here, and now I got my friend Dan with me, and we're going to try to set this Hogs Head on here and see if this new tool he's got works. So, which side you go on? That side? Let me get my glove on. Wouldn't want to get my hands dirty. And I don't like getting it in that black silicone either. Jeez, you'd think being a doctor I'd know how to put these on. Okay, so now the trick is to get this little thing in the right direction. Watch your fingers. You'll probably grab that edge. What's all this? Well, we done this just 10 minutes ago, dry fit it, and went right down on there. Since we got the camera on, of course it's not going to go right down on there. What's holding this up? We're not even... I think we're hitting that block. Let me...
It's just not centered.
There it goes. Now, what are we doing? Slide
those go.
Yeah. And that one. Let's,
It's hitting on top of there. So this needs to slide.
this part or
There's the clamp up there. Yeah, there you go. And there's no washers in there.
we still got to go forward, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, we're up against
I think easier in here, Bruce. Yeah, it's hitting. Oh, there
Oh,
it
it
is. It was resting on that bar.
Oh.
That center one still was hitting.
There it goes. Now it needs to come forward. Let me get this.
Oh, that did the trick.
What about the wait a minute, washer?
Okay, now we're seated. Now we can pull out the
Oh, yeah.
this thing.
So yeah, we're gonna pull out the band wrench. Now we can drop it down where it needs to go. I think, yeah, go ahead and pull your tool out of there. Just pull straight up. Oh, that's a nice one, Luigi. So I'll show you what we did here. All right, so that thing went as good as can be. We got the half moon thing down in there that works the high gear. We got that tool we just took out last, held these springs together so they fit in between the bands. The bands go in here to there. We got the lock washers on the right side, and so this will have to be all adjusted. But now the next thing we do is just go ahead and put the bolts down through here and draw it all down. So we'll do that probably off camera. But that's how you put the Hogs Head on.
So they put a picture of me in the last newsletter giving the demonstration. I haven't been flooded with phone calls from people wanting passion yet.
They want your autograph. You able to get that side to tighten up?
Yeah, they're all snug.
All right. All right. Okay, so we got everything tightened back down, and now I'm just going to snug up the bands. And this is would be an aftermarket tool. I don't believe Ford actually provided these, but this is just a ratcheting wrench that you can get in here and work these nuts. Yeah, that's easier said than done. Sometimes you got to do this to get it on there. Anyhow, you tighten that up. And I'm not going to get carried away with this because I want to loose until we run the car. I'm, however, going to get it set so it's locked in. There's a little washer here that has a little bump on it, and these nuts have a bump on them. And that's what holds them in place. See if I can get this one tightened up. I don't want these to fall off because if you drop them down in there, that's a little fun to get them back out of here. So right now I'm working on the reverse band. The first one I did was the brake, and then the low band or low gear is adjusted from the outside of the motor. That's plenty for now. This one I'm going to tighten up a bit more, but when we run this motor in the car, then we'll set these. There's really no reason to set them up right now. Get the thing to lock in there. So about like that. The other thing is you want to tighten them enough so that the spring's actually doing something. And then these nuts will lock in. So there. So that's how you get the Hogs Head on. Wasn't that fun? I had fun. Dan, did you have fun?
I did.
Dan had fun. There you go. All right, the Lincoln update. So got it back off the left and got it back over here after I put the oil pan on and got the nice oil pan all fixed. I had my friend Tom TIG weld the inside of it, and then I just painted it with lacquer paint, left the brass nuts and brass oil plug natural so it looks pretty. And I did paint it because I don't want it to rust again, so it's going to be a little bit prettier, but you can't hardly see it anyhow once you're up here looking down on it. Frame's in the way. All right, so I did a pretty good score over the weekend. Went up to, I don't know, somewhere around Plymouth, Michigan, north of Detroit. Met a friend of a friend that has Lincolns. He has 2 Lincolns, and he had parts, and he just happened to have the parts I needed. So we got 2 exhaust manifolds, 1 intake manifold, a starter generator, the 3 castellated nuts I needed for the suspension, and the 1 right-hand thread lug nut that I was missing. They also gave me a left-hand thread lug nut. And then for the pièce de résistance, the steering wheel. Oh man, is this sucker cool or what? This is like 18 inches in diameter. Fits right on the car. It probably come off this car because he was friends with Bob that had the car. But if it did come off the car, he saved it because it didn't sit out in the weather. So there's just 6 bolts that hold it on to the collar. I'll have to make a ring that these bolts go through. I don't have that, but that's a lot easier than trying to make this steering wheel. So yeah, it was a very, very good day. Pretty much I got all the parts I need. I need a distributor cap yet. I'm looking for one of those. So well, I've got a rotor, but I could probably use another rotor and a set of points. But I'm getting down to the ignition, so I'll get some of this put on. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, hey, this is entirely too pretty. Well, it is entirely too pretty. Originally, these had porcelain over the top of the steel. This one does not have the porcelain. This one does. Now, on my other Lincoln, I had the 23 Touring. The manifolds are on it. The car has probably got a lot of miles on it. The porcelain's all wore off. And on that car, I have a gasket that's leaking. So what I'm thinking, since these are so pretty, I think I might have this one powder painted, high temp powder, and then put these 2 on my 23 and take the old rusty, cruddy looking ones and put on this Speedster, because this is way too nice to be putting on that Speedster. And I mean, both of these are just, they're like brand new. So yeah, that's a good thing. So this big monster here is the intake manifold. The carburetor actually goes here. There's intake. This is a water jacket. This has exhaust gases going up through there, which is what this pipe is for here. So this actually would sit on underneath there like that. And then that pipe goes up, comes back around and goes back down to the other side. Now a lot of guys will do away with these, and that's probably what I'm going to do. This one's been plugged off. I really don't see the purpose in this. I'm not sure if this is to actually heat up the intake manifold or if it's actually some way of cooling the exhaust temperature down, because you have radiator fluid coming in here circulating around through all this. And I don't know if they thought that if they pushed some exhaust gas up through here, maybe that would actually help cool this, because this is all in a very tight, confined area. I don't really know. If any of you guys out there are Lincoln aficionados, experts, leave me a comment. See what you think. But we're probably going to do away with that, because a lot of the guys around Lincolns do away with this manifold. There was a guy back in the day that made an aluminum manifold for a downdraft carburetor that's set up here with a Holley 2-barrel. And a lot of Lincolns got converted over to that. This one has not, and my other one hasn't. But the ones that are converted, they don't have this option. So that's going to be a food for thought. And then the generator. So starter generator. I'll get this on the tester and see if this is going to work, but it should. This is just bolt on. This will give me a starter, and if I want to use a generator, I can. I'm probably going to go with a 12-volt system, but I'm not sure yet. This is 6-volt, but I'm not going to run 12 to that. So there you go. There's your update on the Speedster project. We're just gathering parts right now. All right, so I've been busy. Just a little update. I was able to make a metal ring. I actually just took a large washer I found at the hardware store of all places for like $2. Stuck in the lathe, was able to get it down the right size, and this opened up the right size. Marked the holes, drilled the holes for the bolts, and put that in there like that, and then this will fit on here like, well, about like that. Anyhow, these are all screwed down. I'm debating. I think I'll sandblast this galvanized off here and paint it with the same color I painted these bolts, so it's not so obtrusive. But anyhow, the boy, it's gonna look pretty, and it should work just fine. So anyhow, I'm getting this. This is coming along. All right, so I just got done painting the ring, which will go on the steering wheel, and I just got done putting some linseed oil on the steering wheel. Easy peasy. You just take linseed oil, put it in the thing, and take a paper towel and just wipe it on. Could it be that easy? Yes, it's just that easy. Another project done. Hey, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Klepp's Garage. I want to thank my friend Dan for coming over and sharing his tool that he brought over. Couldn't have done the job without it. This made it a lot easier. The spring decompression tool to get the Hogs Head on. And so just if you've ever seen one of these at a flea market, I guess pick it up. But, you know, you never do this job. This isn't something you do every year. But anyhow, we had fun today, and this motor's all back together, and it's ready to go down in that frame I showed you earlier. And one of these episodes, maybe we'll get this thing on the road. So, like I always say, drive them if you got them. Till next time, we'll see ya.